Thursday, what's going on? My people. Getting IG set up real quick. This should be a good one today. IG, no bumps in the road. Let's cross our fingers. Good Friday tomorrow. All right. We're in. Good evening, wonderful people, and welcome to another enlightening episode of Know Your Pharmacist. I'm Dr. Joaquin Acosta, your guide in this journey where health meets innovation and knowledge transforms lives. Tonight we delve into a world where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, where every discovery and discussion can be a stepping stone to a healthier, more vibrant life. Our segments are meticulously crafted, combining the latest advancements in pharmacy with the timeless wisdom of wellness. In the Pharmacist Frontline segment, we'll explore the dynamic landscape of the medical supply quality, where BD's strategic response to FDA concerns is reshaping how we think about the tools essential to healthcare. So, in our Tech Talk, prepare to be amazed as we dive into the microscopic world of cutting-edge medical imaging technology. Cameras no larger than a grain of salt that promise to revolutionize diagnostics and treatment. Pretty awesome. Our Enlightenment Hour is a deep dive into the complex world of opioid management, a critical balance of care and caution, highlighting the essential collaboration between both pharmacists and physicians. And for those intrigued by the evolving landscape of mental health, our Herbal Wellness Corner will unveil the potential challenges of psychedelic therapeutics, an area ripe with possibilities for transformative care. And let's not forget about the community that surrounds us. In our community spotlight, we're excited to showcase Auto Speedway Park's exhilarating Easter extravaganza with their special guest coming out, the Boogie Babes. Testament to the joy and unity sports brings to our lives. Hope everybody has that planned for next Saturday. Yeah, not this Easter Saturday. And in our Men's Health Minute, we'll unravel the crucial link between sleep, metabolism, and overall health, uncovering how our nightly rest shapes our lives. Join me as we navigate these fascinating topics enriched with insights from our esteemed sponsors who share a vision of a healthier, more informed world. Together, let's ignite our curiosity, expand our understanding, and embrace the power of knowledge. So grab your favorite spot, settle in. Let's embark on this captivating journey. Remember, your health is your wealth, and knowledge is the key to unlocking its potential. So welcome to Know Your Pharmacist. Jumping right on in. How's everybody doing tonight? Okay, so some interesting stuff. BD syringes, if anybody's in our Pharmacist Frontline segment heard much of BD syringes. You know, there's some funny BD syringe Valentine's jokes. It's like, are you a brand name pen needle? Because it might be a BD syringe. I don't remember the exact joke. Anyways, that's my cheesy joke of the day. But they're sharing right now here. BD to increase plastic syringe production after FDA warns on imports from China. Pretty interesting, right? Following quality concerns voiced by the FDA regarding plastic syringes made in China, medical technology company BD has announced it will increase its production of plastic syringes in the United States. In response to recommendations from the FDA that healthcare providers avoid using plastic syringes made in China, BD has announced it will ramp up its U.S. production of the drug delivery hardware. After warning healthcare providers against using plastic syringes from China last November, the FDA doubled down on its recommendation last week. Initially, the guidance came after the agency collected reports of leaks, breakages, and other problems associated with the syringes. Following recent facility inspections and product examinations, the FDA's quality concerns have continued to mount. Our ongoing evaluation has confirmed that issues with the quality of plastic syringes made in China and their distribution in the United States are more widespread than originally known, said Jeff Shuren, MD Device Center Director at the FDA in the news release. As FDA made its original recommendations in November, BD has upped its production of plastic syringes at sites in Nebraska and Connecticut, and the company will remain committed to increasing production of drug delivery hardware as the quality issues in China are resolved. You know, man, oh man, oh man. Flashbacks for me. Last year when Mexico Department of Health filling us up with all kinds of free syringes, which I still have a bunch in storage. We had some real bad batches sometimes, and I tell you, like, I've got a soft hand, but sometimes that, syringe right there between the actual syringe and the needle, that attachment point for whatever reason was incredibly weak, and you had to be like super picky because, I've literally had it like, not completely break off in the patient arm, but, crack open, and then all of a sudden you're wasting your dose, you seem incompetent. It is an embarrassing situation, and ultimately, costing everybody money because, and just looking really bad on the healthcare provider in general. But, some people have obviously probably experienced that. I've given, again, in the last 2 years alone, I think probably about 15,000 vaccines, and this is a handful of times. But when those things happen, like, I literally would ditch the whole entire bag of 100 with it and be like, this is just a bad bag, right? And these were not always the BD syringes. The BD syringes are the brand name syringes, right? So, most people do not buy brand name syringes. Again, if you're going to buy syringes over the counter, the absolute best, most affordable place to do it is Walmart. They're Rely On brand, right? I don't know if it's made in China or not, but again, those have been a very consistent brand for a long amount of time. Otherwise, BD syringes, I hate to say it, but they are a great deterrent, right, for drug seekers. I do not sell syringes by the syringe. That is my 100%. I'll die on that hill. If I'm running a pharmacy, no, we're not going to sell. We're only selling it by the box. If you can afford the box, cool. But we're not going to play this every single day, multiple times a day. Get a syringe, clean the syringes out of the bathroom, clean the syringes out of the parking lot, make it crappy for everybody around. That's not my style. I will never do that. And it's insane because I completely understand that every single pharmacist has their own, professional, way of dealing with things. That's my way of curbing things. There's places, right, where you can absolutely go and access syringes on the daily, whether you're in Albuquerque or in Las Cruces, whatever it may be. It got really bad. I saw it in Albuquerque, in Grants, in Gallup, in Socorro. This is mainly in the north, right? But these are problems that, still exist down south. So anyways, we do want to have a good syringe supply. You don't want to encourage syringe sharing by any means. And I'm sure that caused a lot of different drama for sure along a lot of different pathways. I could imagine on the streets, if you're breaking a syringe and it's your last syringe, and you're just going to try to manufacture and reuse that yourself, I'm sure you're causing and spreading potentially, all the bloodborne, Hep C, HIV, all the fun stuff that we spend a lot of money on as a state to, right? Try to prevent. Let's move on to our tech talk. Interesting things here. Coming out of LinkedIn from freethink.com. A little educational spiel here of new salt grain micro camera takes images on par with full-size cameras. Very cool stuff. I'm curious to see exactly what this is going to mean eventually for all sorts of medical examinations, right? I'm sure perhaps a colonoscopy could ideally be a little bit more comfortable, with a grain of salt sized imaging thing. So anyways, virus size eyes plus artificial intelligence, the key to making this happen. So shown here from freethink.com, it's smaller than a Shutterberg, a micro-sized camera the size of a grain of salt can take sharp, full-color photos comparable to the images produced by standard cameras, more than 500,000 times larger. The secret lies in over 1 million eyes, roughly the size of an HIV virus, covering the camera known as its metasurface. The micro camera could be used to improve in-body and brain imaging, autonomous driving, robotics, and other fields where computer vision plays an important role. How they work: they use metasurfaces that already exist, but their image quality is hamstrung by a little something called physics. A regular camera uses an array of lenses to bend light into focus, creating the sharper images it captures, but the camera has to be big enough to support the lens. And does anybody have any idea what a metasurface is? Because I really don't. I'll tell you the truth, and trying to get down to the bottom of all that is absolutely, probably a little bit beyond my pay grade, but I'm sure we'll figure it out someday. Anyways, a little bit of a meta lens explanation here as trending off of the freethink.com article. Just showing here, this is a specific company called MetaLens. It's over the part that the camera was made of a single meta surface, quote unquote, that could save precious space in battery life in phones and other devices, and they're about to ship it. The concept is similar to, but not descended from, the metamaterials that gave rise to flat beam forming radar and the LiDAR of Lumotive and Ecodyne technology I'm not very familiar with. But the idea is to take a complex 3D structure and accomplish what it does using precisely engineered 2D surface. Not actually two-dimensional, of course, but usually a plane with features measured in microns. In the case of the camera, main components are, of course, a lens. These days, it's usually several stacked with which corrals the light, and an image sensor, which senses and measures the light, right? And as we talked about it, the problems faced by cameras now, particularly in smartphones, is that the lenses can't be made much smaller without seriously affecting the clarity of the image. Likewise, sensors are nearly at a limit of how much light they can work in, and consequently, most of the photography advancements in the last few years have been done on the computational side. So using an engineered surface that does away with the need for complex optics and other camera systems has been a goal for years. Back in 2016, a NASA project was written about that took inspiration from moth eyes to create a 2D camera of sorts. It's harder than it sounds, though. Usable imagery has been generated in the labs, but it's not the kind of thing that you take to Apple or Samsung. MetaLens, looking to change that. Anyways, a small little explanation there, but how do you shrink a camera? One way to shrink it is by using meta optics, which use incredibly small nanostructures that can capture and re-emit light. Each of these little structures siphons up the photons that make light, and the metasurface then turns those photons into a signal a computer can understand, thinking of them as tiny antennas. The secret lies in over roughly 1 million eyes, size of an HIV virus, covering the camera, known as its metasurface. Pretty interesting, right? Microcameras had been previously made using this meta-optics approach, but the results have been fairly lackluster thus far, according to Newsweek. Images look like colored smears through cataracts, and the cameras can suffer from a narrow field of view. For capturing large field of view images, it's challenging because there's millions of these little microstructures, and it's not clear how to design them in an optimal way, according to a Princeton PhD student. So, optimal optics. To overcome the issues, the Princeton micro camera team turned to scientist's Swiss Army knife, machine learning. University of Washington researcher and study co-lead Shane Colburn created an AI model that could test the configurations of the tiny antennas on the microcamera meta surface. Because there are so many antennas and their relationship to the light they are capturing is complex, the simulation needs massive amounts of memory and time. By combining the physical properties of their microcamera with algorithmic optimization, the team was actually able to produce images a considerable step up from the current cutting edge. Pretty interesting, right? Prior state-of-the-art pictures shown on the left, neural nano optics shown on the right. So while the edges get a little blurred, a flower indeed looks like a flower, according to the researchers. The microcamera's field of view and the high-quality photos are new high watermarks. Although the approach of optical design is not new, it's the first system that uses a surface optical technology in the front end and neural-based processing in the back. Joseph Knight, former chief scientist at the U.S. Army Research Laboratory, said in the release. So, big picture, researchers believe their microcamera could be dusted on a surface, making anything a camera. Perhaps not the most comforting thought, as Nerdist points out, especially when guys like, P. Diddy are out there trafficking children. Just got to say that for sure. Well, we could turn individual surfaces into cameras that have ultra-high resolution, so you wouldn't need 3 cameras on the back of your phone anymore, but the whole back of your phone would become one giant camera. Princeton computer science professor and study senior author Felix Hyde said in the release. The microcameras could also improve brain imaging, spot problems in the body, and enhance sensing ability of tiny robots. More benignly, they can help enhance current endoscopical surgical methods where tiny tools, including a camera, perform surgeries as non-invasively as possible and open up new avenues for brain imaging. We can think of completely different ways to build devices in the future. Very, very cool stuff. As you think technology just gets that much more advanced, that much more, pretty much incredible, right? We just got to stay, on top of those things, and ideally those, perhaps, making people more comfortable and being able to identify, medical conditions in a much faster, better way, using these little tiny microscopic salt-sized cameras. Oh my gosh, right? Wonder if they're cheap to make. Wonder if it's going to bring the iPhone price down. Now, who knows? We'll have to wait and see. All right, examining trends in long-term opioid use. Coming over here, drug topics. Drug topics came out with some really good stuff recently. So we're going to be sharing a little bit of them. Again, just as we did in the Pharmacist Frontline segment. I like it. Anyways, the opioid epidemic in the United States has reached staggering levels, right? With data from the National Drug Institute showing there was over 80,000 overdose deaths involving opioids in 2021 alone. Opioid misuse is a serious issue and represents a threat to public health, and the drug is still used and is effective for treating certain conditions such as chronic pain. Eye roll, there's much better things, right? NSAIDs for long-term chronic pain, dental procedures, a lot of these things that people were getting 30-day opioid prescriptions that got them hooked, and then, onto the worst stuff. Again, should have been a little bit better mitigated until we started identifying and actually, treating according to the CDC pain guidelines in about 2017, 2018. But until then, America, we should be really proud of ourselves that we became the world's top consumer of opioids, consuming 80% of the opioids in the world, while only being 5% of the world population. Talk about a swindling. Come on, guys. Anyways, at the American Pharmacist Association 2024 annual meeting and exposition, APHA 2024, some good stuff coming out of that. It's held in Orlando. Research examined the importance of collaboration between physicians and community pharmacists when it comes to opioid prescriptions, as well as current opioid use patterns and trajectories among older adults. First, research investigators from the University of Georgia conducted a systematic review to assess current research on physician-pharmacist collaboration to reduce opioid-related risks and expand access to naloxone and medications for opioid use disorder. Which PubMed, Web of Science, and Google Scholars conducted for research published between 2002 and 2023. And the review included a total of 11 studies that met inclusion criteria. Investigators found that collaborative services offered by physicians and pharmacists included engaging with patients to optimize pain management, implementation of opioid risk reduction strategies, and facilitating access to naloxone and medications for opioid use disorder. Many positive results came from the collaborative model, such as identification of medication-related problems, increased rates of medication, opioid use disorder-related treatment, retention, and adherence, and enhanced patient collaboration. Physicians and pharmacists both reported positive attitudes about the collaboration. I like a lot of these things. One of these things this article is definitely missing out on is cannabis, right? When you talk about combinations of CBD and THC, they are absolutely effective at the nociception, the pain control point, the nociceptor, right along the spine, along those pain pathways, literally on the exact same, cells throughout the body. And you talk about chronic pain, cannabis, your CB1 receptors, your CB2 receptors are right there next to your opioid receptors, right there, increasing the amount of pain that you perceive, the pain that you feel, which, you turn off with opioids, but again, it's physically addictive. And if you can bring those levels down without causing some serious effects and bring them down, in a holistic way, not only with healthcare provider collaboration, but using the right medicines as well, right? There's absolute promise for the future, right? That's a nice horizon for healthcare to think we've got to still find creative solutions, to attack these problems, because again, people are still dying every 45 seconds from opioid overdoses in the country. As much as we are evaluating these studies right now, we are still failing our patients just as much as we still have 100 million people, with type 2 diabetes that need to be absolutely cured from it, right? Type 2 diabetes is absolutely reversible. But we just keep coming out with more high-tech stuff to help you, continue to maintain and spend more money on your type 2 diabetes for the rest of your life. Something we've been talking about this week. Anyways, minus my soapbox. We're talking about increased collaboration between physicians and community pharmacists in optimizing opioid therapy could enhance patient engagement and contribute to the responsible use of opioids and reduce opioid-related risks and improve patient safety. Addressing challenges such as issues of trust, communication barriers, reimbursement, and the need for clearly defined roles is crucial for effective implementation of physician-pharmacist collaborative practices in enhancing opioid safety. Next, study examined there from the University of Wisconsin-Madison conducted a study to examine trends in long-term opioid treatment among Medicare beneficiaries in Wisconsin with chronic non-cancer pain, and to assess trends in the long-term opioid treatment among subpopulations. Well, data was gathered from enrollment and prescription drug claims data between 2016 and 2019 for Medicare beneficiaries enrolled in standalone Part D prescription drug plans. The study found that Medicare Part D beneficiaries increased by 15.41% between 2016 and 2019, and from 596,517 to 688,468. However, during the same period, beneficiaries eligible for high-dose opioids decreased by 17.38%, from 64,472 to 53,264. And during the study period, the average daily morphine milligram equivalents per opioid prescription decreased from 43.96 to 38.78. Great decrease, right? Statistically significant, I'm sure. Not. Anyways, additionally, the average daily morphine milligram equivalents per beneficiary decreased from 27.42 in 2016 to 25.1 in 2019. And after the publication of the CDC guidelines for prescribing opioids for chronic pain came out in 2016, there was decreasing trends in prescription opioid dispensing in the state of Wisconsin, just as everywhere else, right? Actually, toodles to Walmart for being the first company to hop on it. They were the first company to say, you got to be, e-prescribing all controlled substance prescriptions, and they're not going to accept anything else. No handwritten copies. I can't tell you sometimes how many of those Sunday afternoons or, Saturdays they would go and blitz and try to hit like 3 or 4 stores at a time with, a fake prescription pad, and, some would get it, some wouldn't, and there's the crack shoot right there for sure. And, after 2016, it became a little bit more vigilant, right? From at least the pharmacist side. And I think, healthcare providers definitely have, as far as prescribers, have chilled out on that as well. But the collaboration, between community pharmacists and physicians, in every single setting I've ever worked in, minus the independent, it's not quite there, right? Pharmacists will do their due diligence in terms of calling the doctor, waiting for a confirmation about, is this prescription valid? What is this, what is the plan here, so we can get it on record, put those notes in, check the prescription monitoring program, and then use professional judgment for sure. But those kinds of patients at the same time, and I hate to profile anybody by any means, but again, can be some of the nastiest, most demanding people in the entire world. And, when you're just working a retail job, I've literally, when I was an intern during those times, such as 2016, I watched pharmacists that I worked with literally succumb to the pressure of, hey, I've just got to get this person out. And maybe they had a better relationship with that person to where they could trust it a little bit, but the guidelines that the company was actually setting up, according to the CDC, were not following. So, again, weighing the risk benefit there, or the, fact that you may have a giant line and whatever else, and Walmart had a phrase. I really bring it back to Walmart because they were the first guys to crack down on it, and just being a part of that company during that time was very interesting. I had one pharmacist that absolutely loved it. She was empowered, right, to say her professional line of, this is my professional judgment. Is what it is. I don't have to say anything else. Basically, bye. But cutting people off, right, really, again, is not entirely the way to do it, right? So you gotta find that fine line of balance there, a collaboration between physicians and community pharmacists working together. Absolutely the way to go, right? But then you still have public health, who is a big part of that as well. Community health, and really at the interventional stages where you see this. I think a lot of the prescribing habits did get changed, did get de-escalated, but the damage that was caused beforehand was almost obviously enough to continue to keep us in the opioid epidemic as we are today in 2024. All right, so continue on from the absolute bangers from Drug Topics, talking about psychedelic therapeutics here in our Herbal Wellness Corner, brought to you by High Horse Cannabis Company. Education, advocacy, key to overcoming integration hurdles. Some interesting stuff. Want to check this one out. Going to play this, pause this real quick. Some insight coming out of the APHA this weekend. So anyways, it's talking about what are some potential benefits and challenges associated with a wider
With more
availability.
availability, there's going to be a lot of potential benefits, but as well as a lot of risks and challenges as well. So we can start off with the benefits. Of course, like I believe that these compounds can really help support one's inner healer, the ability to actively work through the some of the stuff we've buried in our subconscious, get to the root cause of a lot of these traumas that we face that have then manifested into symptoms of depression, anxiety, PTSD. So with more availability to these potentially healing medicines comes more healing. Now, with that said, as it becomes more accessible, more available, there's also the potential for misuse. There's a potential for a lack of supervised support in safe settings, to where people may be misinformed about what the process looks like, and either they are not psychologically ready to pursue these experiences, and that can push someone into the deep end. It's a lot of facing the inner shadow, and it can be very enlightening and empowering and blissful, but it can also be very dark. So if people are not ready for that, it can be potentially harmful for them. Um, there's also the point on education, like being able to educate, of course, the general public. So having more educational initiatives there, but also the challenge of educating more clinicians about this. So there's already a bottleneck of trauma-informed psychotherapists, as well as trauma-informed pharmacists to help be a part of this care. But then when it comes to being able to be trained in MDMA-assisted psychotherapy, potentially psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy down the road, there's not. We need more training to take place, and we need more. We just need more people to be more clinicians to be curious and to explore it and be able to be that access point to care. So some of the challenges we'll face are just going to be a lack of access to this care, and I think we'll see a lot of people on wait lists to be able to get that care. And then of course you'll have fatigue or vicarious trauma for some of these clinicians if they're just doing back to back to back to back sessions. So really wanting to make sure that we address the potential of that burnout for those facilitators, for those co-therapists, potentially pharmacists as well in this space. So yeah, there's of course the benefit of people being able to access more care that's sustainable and empowers them to find their inner healer. And then there's also the consequence of misinformed use, misuse, and lack of training, vetted, trusted support for those that are in such a vulnerable state of consciousness.
So, thoughts on this in general.
I invite everyone to just read more, to watch more. There's amazing documentaries on very popular streaming services. Netflix has the How to Change Your Mind series, where they talk about a variety of psychedelic compounds, fantastic fungi, awesome documentary, something you can look into to learn more about psilocybin. And I really got to say, if you're a pharmacist or a pharmacist ally, and you want to find a way to learn and educate others about psychedelics, but also take an active role in advocating for our profession. No one's advocating for pharmacists right now. The low-hanging fruit, especially pharmacy, and that's just because they need a middleman to bill insurance and coordinate the delivery of logistical handling of these medications. But we're so much more than that, and we can do so much more than that. So I invite you all, if this is something you're passionate about, interested in, please consider joining the Psychedelic Pharmacists Association. We're a nonprofit dedicated to pharmacists, led by pharmacists, pharmacist allies, for the purpose of educating others on psychedelics, advocating for our profession to be included in this care, and to also build community for pharmacists in this space.
So, a lot of thoughts for sure. I mean, pharmacists do have a place when it comes to all kinds of medicine. We don't get taught about a lot of the non-traditional medicine. These are things that, of course, you have to go and learn. As a pharmacist who is absolutely a passionate cannabis pharmacist and all the clinical benefits and uses there, I'm like, well, I'm slightly staying in my lane because this is, different stuff when you consider, drugs like ayahuasca or herbals, whatever you want to call them, right? Psychedelics like mushrooms, even, perhaps what could fall under the category LSD, right? LSD, used by, United States government and, Project MK Ultra over how many years, right? And maybe that's conspiracy theory in some CIA situations or not, but right, somebody's got to understand how this works in the body. And if you're going to use it for healing, right, there's a way to go about it. And again, as a pharmacist, necessarily a spiritual healer and those kinds of things, that's going to be some next level stuff, right? For sure. And unpacking that in general, I think if you can at least get to a point of understanding maybe safe dosing guidelines and thresholds there, you may not be the pharmacist may never be this, or maybe they'll find the super one that's the spiritual quest navigator by some means, but it's just an interesting thought concept there. And if we can really get some good data, taking a look at how, for instance, right, psychedelics may be better than SSRIs and some of these things over time in acute doses or whatever it might be, or microdosing, sure, it'd be great to go ahead and evaluate those things. Obviously, that is farther behind, than something like cannabis, and where we look at, cannabis and its roles in chronic pain, mental health, anxiety. I think we've got our number one herb by all means. The famous ayahuasca retreat, the ayahuasca mascot. I want to hear from him, Aaron Rodgers.
Ceremony. And
Aaron Rodgers' mind, body, and soul on display.
it was a very deep and meaningful couple nights ceremony, and I came back and knew that I was never going to be the same.
The Packers QB on a podcast this week admitted to using a psychedelic drug called ayahuasca while climbing Machu Picchu in Peru in 2020, calling it a life-changing experience.
It gave me a deep and meaningful appreciation for life.
Rodgers says using ayahuasca is the reason he won MVP on the field back-to-back 2 years in a row.
One of the core tenets of your mental health is that self-love. And that's what ayahuasca did for me. I really feel like that experience paved the way for me to have the best season of my career.
What is ayahuasca?
It's technically a brew of two different plants that you drink. And it affects your mind and your body and your soul in many different ways.
Laurel Zeminski in Cudahy is a sound and energy practitioner who studies plant medicine. The hallucinogenic drug contains DMT, an illegal substance in the U.S., which is why she's taking a group to Costa Rica next year for an ayahuasca retreat.
Ayahuasca is known to help people with anxiety, depression, PTSD.
What do you make of Aaron Rodgers using it?
I think Aaron Rodgers using ayahuasca is fabulous. I think it really brings to light plant medicine and the benefits.
Other Packer fans say they're on board with Rodgers' pseudo-secret weapon.
This is for his own mental health and hopefully his own spiritual health, and that maybe translates to a new ring on his finger.
In Cudahy, Hillary Mintz, WISN 12 News.
Experts say you should talk to your doctor before considering using any psychedelic. Players are randomly drug tested throughout the season. 12 News asked the Packers. They had no comment.
And, it's totally interesting there because it's like, ask your doctor. Your doctor's not going to have any idea what's going on with that, right? And, it's probably going to be just, same thing as you ask your parents something and they have no idea about it. They're just going to say no. It's for the safer answer. And so, again, this is, I think, where the important part about pharmacists and or medical providers being able to answer questions for people, if you could actually get some clinical relevant data that, is showing perhaps, these big pharma drugs that people take that have all kinds of side effects, right? Even though some promising benefits in certain cases, but again, antipsychotics, anti-anxiety medications, whether they're benzos or SSRIs or SNRIs. I mean, there's a lot of room for hurt, right? In those other ways, right? And especially if the dosing isn't right. And if anybody understands, being dosed for mental health medication, it's the absolute most personalized thing for every single individual. There is no one trick pony when it comes to, treating anybody for their mental health status with prescription drugs. People have I've seen people been through the absolute gambit with things, and now they're, end up on clozapine or whatever those, type of REMS drugs could be. So it's just a very interesting, I think, play and an interesting situation to pretty much look at. And I would think it's cool to see medical providers, perhaps hopefully starting to pioneer some of those fields as well, but you do need data so you don't look, just a little bit too far off. Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't look too far off. I know some people he perhaps maybe rubbed the wrong way, but Aaron Rodgers is a pretty, intelligent human being. It's not easy to win MVPs back to back in the NFL as a quarterback, regardless of any other situation. So, it's interesting. You're a healthcare provider, or even a patient. Would you consider trying shrooms? Would you consider trying ayahuasca? Have you done them in your life? Questions. You don't have to comment. You don't have to confess, but it's just interesting. Those could be on the healthcare horizon one of these days. And again, I'm all about transparency and good information, and definitely think it's worth taking a look at. Obviously, opioids and the opium plant ran us into some serious problems when we took that synthetic situation all the way out there. Anyways, guys, it's a promotion for our community spotlight brought to you by the Baked Chicken Farm. We're also going to be out at the Matchbox Farms community event this Saturday, I believe, from 3 to 6 over at Matchbox's dispensary in Doniana. So shouting those guys out. And just right down the street in terms of the Baked Chicken Farm, Vado Speedway Park, Easter egg extravaganza. If anybody is planning to come out to the races or the Easter egg hunt next Saturday, it's going to be really fun. Very excited. And guess who's going to be out there? The Boogie Babes. So go and watch the Boogie Babes dancing on out. Come join it, jump on the table, let it all out, have some fun. It's going to be great racing. Hammer down, baby. Can't wait. All right, so speaking of Vado Speedway Park, talking about our Men's Health Minute here. Just interesting stuff in our last segment of the evening, talking about metabolic and hormonal effects of catch-up sleep in men with chronic, repetitive, lifestyle-driven sleep restriction. We talk about lifestyle-driven sleep restriction. Thursday is a very common day for that catch-up to possibly be, an effective thing. And so talking about it here, acutely restricting sleep worsens insulin sensitivity in healthy individuals whose usual sleep is normal in duration and pattern, and the effect of recovery or weakened catch-up sleep on insulin sensitivity and metabolically active hormones in individuals with chronic sleep restriction who regularly catch up on sleep at weekends is yet unstudied. But looking at this, 3 nights of catch-up sleep, according to this study, improved both insulin sensitivity in men with chronic sleep, repetitive sleep restriction. How do you unpack that? Well, of course, your work week being Monday through Friday, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, or you can even say Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night could be, 3 days there where, you could actually get some catch-up sleep. And again, perhaps, especially in the younger generation, you may be looking at that Thursday night as a little bit of freedom to start, living for the weekend and living for the nights. But you may just be, obviously, as we already know, compounding all kinds of crazy hormonal effects going on in the body, only to just end up at that Monday just absolutely just wretched. And I get it. I understand how it feels to be young, excited. You got to take advantage of those times. But, every now and then, perhaps a couple days of sleep, mid-weekend sleep, maybe you can get into weekend activities. But again, can you get the 8+ hours of sleep in the weekend versus probably your 6 hours of sleep during the week? And so, again, just a little bit of a reminder here on Thursday, looking catch-up sleep. It's highly prevalent with 40% or above of working age adults sleeping more on the weekends compared to weekdays, and really understanding, the actual metabolic implications of the lifestyle choices is highly relevant. Men who regularly adopt lifestyle-driven chronic repetitive sleep restriction with weekend catch-up sleep significantly improved insulin sensitivity by 45% following 3 nights of a saturating sleep compared to ongoing sleep restriction as measured by minimal model after an oral glucose challenge. So, perhaps those of you who power through your week, and you're getting to the weekend, very excited, run that both ways, right? If you're really on Tuesday, frustrated that you didn't get the sleep that you wanted, well, know that weekend is, perhaps if you have the luxury of, doing the weekend and having that off, or running the, Monday through Friday, schedule, whether it's 8 to 5 or, throughout the day, however that may be. Or if you've just got a little break and at least some sort of a consistent schedule, you can perhaps think that, hey, you've got 4 nights where you can, kind of give away on your sleep, push a little harder in the week to get the stuff that you got to get done. You can recover from it, with 3 nights of good restful sleep. Perhaps that may just be for you right now, the night before, Good Friday, but maybe you're just getting ready to go hammer down Friday. Well, can you get Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, perhaps, or not, right? But can you scatter it even throughout the week? I know it didn't necessarily look at 3 separate nights, but consecutive nights, probably a little bit more ideal. I'm sure you feel very refreshed coming into the Monday, regardless of what you got through. Anyways, guys, hope everybody has a great rest of your Thursday evening. I will see you guys mañana. Happy Thursday, Dr. Joaquin.